Thank you, Dad. Congratulations, Pilar, and to all the new officers. You ladies do a great job of transition of power, and you maintain one of the very best Republican women's groups in the nation. So I congratulate you all. You know, it's been said that nothing is like being in the midst of a group of God-fearing, America-loving, patriotic Republican women, and I can tell you today that is true. And you gentlemen in the audience, y'all kind of like the icicles on a Christmas tree. Remember those icicles? Y'all too young to remember those. Thanks for having me. And I've been to 48 states, some of the most beautiful places in the country. Here I am in Pinehurst. Kind of have to pinch myself a little bit. And being with you all, I can tell you, it's going to be one of my most memorable Christmas presents of the year. So thank you. You know, we're getting ready to celebrate the birth of the Messiah. And Messiah had many sayings we should listen to. And one was, we should be as gentle as doves and as wise as serpents. As gentle as doves and wise as serpents. I think sometimes we as conservatives and Republicans, we're a little too heavy on the gentle as doves part and not on the wise as serpents parts, right? Now the Democrats are more heavy on the wise as serpents part. In fact, I think they are the serpents. You know, and remember what Nancy Reagan said, friends don't let friends vote Democrats. Is that what she said? I want to sound a warning this morning. I'm Don Brown, candidate for the United States Senate. I am a Navy guy, as Deb pointed out. My son, though, is in the Army. My dad was in the Army. I know we're in Army territory, and I'll start by saying that since I was last here, we've had 3 significant Army endorsements to our campaign. One was the 24th National Security Advisor of the United States, General Mike Flynn, has endorsed our campaign. Anybody know General Flynn? Great American. Another one that I'm especially grateful for is General Jerry Boykin, former Delta Force Commander and Special Operations Commander. A third Army officer who's endorsed us is Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. I'm very grateful for Colonel West. And although not an Army officer, but a native North Carolinian, Sidney Powell, who I've worked very closely with, has endorsed this campaign. While we know others have significant endorsements, I wouldn't trade those for any. These are God-fearing, America-loving, red, white, and blue, blood-bleeding Americans, and so I'm grateful for all those. I want to sound a warning, though, this morning. And if it's only one thing to remember me say, it's this, because this is the truth. In the next 4 to 6 years, maybe even sooner, but in the next 4 to 6 years, a battle is coming for the survival of this constitutional republic. It cannot be avoided. First off, the Constitution has a little thing called the 22nd Amendment, which means that President Donald Trump will step out of office in January of 2029. His successor may be J.D. Vance. That'd be not a bad choice. Or my friend Pete Hegseth. There are a lot of great folks if Republicans take control, but President Trump has been Mount Rushmore worthy in many ways. We are sort of in a period of peace because of the force of the president's personality. Yet we are battling 2 forces that require that we send warriors into office at every level from the Senate on down. First, we're battling the forces of evil. Since I was last here, they murdered Charlie Kirk. Then not only they murdered him, but they rejoiced in his murder. We had teachers. There was a professor up at Guilford College praising the shooter. We've had teachers removed from office, joining in with that. We've had them harass and assault Border Patrol agents trying to protect us on the streets from the fentanyl and the sex trafficking scourge that the Democrats have brought on by opening the borders. We've even seen 6 disgusting United States senators make a video encouraging armed forces members to disobey lawful orders of the President of the United States. This is a color revolution that we're in the middle of. But it's not just the forces of evil. And by the way, Jesus said as we get closer to the end, that the wheat and the tare will rise together. The evil that we're about to face is unlike anything we could ever imagine. But ladies and gentlemen, we are also facing the law. We're battling the law of mathematics. What do I mean by that? About a month or so ago, I was headed up to Asheville to speak. And if y'all haven't seen it, there's a website called usdebtclock.org. Write it down and go to it if you haven't seen it. usdebtclock.org. And Pilar, when you go to that site, what you'll see is you'll see the national debt exploding in front of our eyes. And so I've got these brilliant daughters. One's an RN. She taught me how to use this little timer on my cell phone. I set the cell phone for 1 minute. Waited for a minute, and it goes, you know how they do? I look down. Anybody want to know how much the debt had increased in 1 minute? $2 million in 1 minute. All right? Now, I want you to think about this. That comes out to $2.8 billion a day, $120 million in an hour, about $37,000 a second. Our national debt continues to explode. Now, we've done a lot of good things in the Trump administration. President Trump is worthy of Mount Rushmore. But the national debt problem is on the shoulders of the United States Congress. Understand that. Every great nation that ever dominated the earth, starting with the Romans, when you read the New Testament, they had the dinar. President Trump talked about a golden age. Now, he's talking about, takes that from the Dutch. The Dutch had the gilding. We celebrated Columbus Day. The Spanish had the peso. And then they said the sun would never set on British soil. British had the pound sterling, which fell finally to the dollar at Bretton Woods in 1944. You see, every one of these foolish empires spent like a bunch of drunken sailors and never got their fiscal house in order, and their currencies fell. Now, what's going to happen if we don't let me be clear. Under Biden, the debt was exploding at about $55,000 to $60,000 a second. Now you've got it down to $30,000, $37,000 a second. Our North Carolina General Assembly might not have a budget yet, but I can guarantee you're not spending money like a bunch of drunk sailors. We got our budgetary affairs in order in North Carolina and Moore County. But at the federal level, what's going to happen when the dollar collapses? There are 5 nations, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and others, even Saudi Arabia, that are waging war against the dollar. When the dollar falls, it no longer is the international currency of trade, and that means a lot to us. President Trump sent those B-2 bombers to bomb the you-know-what out of Iran's nuclear site with those bunker-busting bombs, only because we're not only a military superpower, we're a military superpower because we're an economic superpower. And when the dollar falls, and it will fall if we don't attack the problem, we will fall as quickly as Britain fell at the end of World War II. And what are they going to do? They're not going to replace it with another international currency of trade. No, it won't be the Japanese yen, it won't be the Canadian dollar, it won't be the euro dollar, it won't be anything like that. Ladies and gentlemen, they are pushing something called, and listen to me, a central bank digital currency. And understand this, if you think the COVID scam was bad when they lied about masks and lied about these dangerous vaxes, well, they make it illegal to trade in United States dollars, and we have to use central bank digital currency. Tyranny will be here. Meyer Rothschild said, give me control of a nation's currency, and I don't care what laws you pass. He was absolutely correct. I'm a Republican because of Republican principles, not because of the establishment of the Republican Party, but because of Republican principles. Freedom, protection of the God-given rights that come down from our Creator. The Republican Party has stepped up all throughout history. We stepped to the fight and battled slavery. During the Civil Rights Movement, it was Republicans that passed the civil rights laws to protect black Americans who were being discriminated against, facing the longest filibuster in history run by the Democrats. President Ronald Reagan, who is also Mount Rushmore worthy, brought down the Soviet Union because of the power of democratic ideas and because we were willing to build our military. But we Republicans have got to step up again. And I'll tell you now, status quo republicanism at the federal level in Washington is not going to get the job done. President Trump said to drain the swamp, and his execution has been brilliant. But think about this. The president has called for the end of the Department of Education and has used executive orders to gut it. We have a Republican Congress, and we still have a Department of Education. Like the robot said on Walt Lofton's Space Fleet, it does not compute. Remember that? It does not compute. And the United States Congress has abandoned its responsibility under the Constitution to this nation. Democrat Congresses have been absolutely disastrous. Going all the way back to 1913 when they passed the 16th Amendment for the income tax, when they passed the first Income Tax Act, when they brought in the Federal Reserve to the Franklin Roosevelt administration. This is when the deep state began to explode with the New Deal. 20 years later, here comes Lyndon Johnson with the Great Society, and the deep state continued to explode, and then came along Obamacare, the Astronomical Cost Act. Who here can say that health care is more affordable than it was 20 years ago? Or that the lines for the doctors are shorter? These are Democrat Congresses destroying the country. But where have our Republican Congresses been? When we had a chance to take Obamacare out, here's what we got from John McCain. All right? We had a chance to do it and failed to do it. Can anyone name one agency of the 400 and some created that has ever been taken out by the Congress? Ladies and gentlemen, we have to go to war. We have to go to war against the deep state. One thing that Doge showed us is that the deep state of the federal government is a criminal enterprise. And it's built on a criminal tax system with criminal deductions that allow Democrat NGOs like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and others to operate ruthlessly, or to allow open secrets to George Soros to operate. If we don't draw a line in the sand here and now, we will lose this republic. That is one of the reasons this United States Senate race is so important. We cannot make a mistake. George S. Patton, the great general, one of my favorite military heroes, said this. He said that an imperfect plan, recklessly and violently executed, is better than a perfect plan that sits on the shelf and never comes off the shelf and gathers dust. Where is the Republican plan to attack and reduce the national debt? We must bring that plan forward here and now, or 5 years from now. We won't enjoy the type of freedom that we enjoy now. The Republican Party must lead the way. I'm going to bring to the United States Senate what I call a Deep State Reduction Act. What would that do? Number one, it would require the elimination of 2/3 of all federal employees outside of the military over a 10-year period. Wouldn't be that hard to retire most of them out. Apply those savings to the national debt. Secondly, remove 2/3 of all federal agencies. If you cannot justify a federal agency by the United States Constitution, it needs to go. And all other agencies, to the extent that they're a function of government, need to go back to the North Carolina General Assembly and to the Moore County Board of Commissioners and the local level as it was intended under the 10th Amendment. If we don't get this under control, we're going to lose. We also have to stand for medical freedom, and I'll do that. I was involved in major litigation against these scam COVID vaxes. Took one case all the way to the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond, representing 78 plaintiffs, many of them nuclear engineers out of Savannah River plant. Biden finally backed down. We saved most of those jobs, but I want to share this with you. During the course of this litigation, we pulled the government's own numbers on the COVID jabs. And here's what your dirty government won't tell you, nor will the dirty press tell you. That in a 10-month period from January until October of 2021, hear me now, there were more deaths, DEA, THS, reported. See, I got my 2-minute mark. I can't hide behind notes and talk too long. They're cracking that whip. There were more deaths reported from the 3 COVID vaccines combined, now listen to this, than from every other vaccine combined over a 30-year period. And your dastardly government and its communist media wing kept that from you. I'm going to propose federal protection so that never again can any government or any employer shame us into putting stuff in our bodies that we don't want to have put in our bodies. Vaccination Protection Act. And by the way, just so you know, the World Economic Forum is already talking about microchips. We've got to fight that here and now, and I will lead the battle on the floor of the Senate. I will be the most unpopular member of the Republican caucus because I'm not going to bow my head to the ghost of Mitch McConnell. I just do what Fusion tells me to do. We have a country to save. Let me close with a quote from the great author from about 25 years ago, and we'll get out of here. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and he shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the King of Kings, the Prince of Peace. Let us remember the Prince of Peace as we move into this Christmas season. Put him first, relish in his peace, pray for our nation. With God all things are possible. The 3 great things that are left are faith, hope, and love. There is hope and faith for our nation. Let us move forward in the battle and save this nation the great Lord has given us. Don Brown, United States Senate, I would appreciate your support. God bless you all. Thank you.